This is a quick video about pins. We're going to talk about the Scandinavian defense. So we got e4, d5, e takes d5, and then the queen's going to take d5. And this is all normal, but then we're going to see that after the knight attacks the queen makes a mistake. The queen's got a lot of options, but the queen chooses to move to c6. And take a second to look at the position after the queen moves to c6. Any options for white? Well, we've got this knight, and we've got a queen. Well, that is the opportunity for an absolute pin. So this bishop's going to move out to b5, attacking the queen, and you should hopefully notice that the queen can't move. The queen is in an absolute pin. It would be illegal for that queen to move, and therefore black will lose its queen on the next move. So that may have been tough to follow, so I'm going to use the chess.com analysis board to go over that again. This is the same game, we're just starting from the beginning. That first move was pawn to e4, and then black responded with d5. Again, that's the Scandinavian defense, kind of an aggressive response, attacking the white pawn on e4. White pawn takes on d5. The queen responds by taking on d5. And this is all a very common opening. And the next common move is knight c3, develops the knight, and at the same time attacks the queen. And black has to do something. Very common moves are to move to a5 or back to d8, but black makes a very bad move here. As we saw before, when black moves to c6, black kind of is now vulnerable to this attack along this kind of a4, e8 diagonal. And this white bishop exploits it by coming up to b5, where it's attacking the queen, and the queen can't legally move. If the queen were to move, the king would be in check, so the black queen is going to be lost on the next move. We're going to take a look at a new opening. We've got white's going to play e4. Black's going to respond with e5. White then plays knight to f3, attacking the pawn on e5, and black responds with knight f6. This is Petrov's defense. White will take on e5, and black plays a dubious move here, takes on e4. And now white's queen comes out to e2, and black makes a really bad move by retreating to f6. Because now white has a discovered attack. You see the knight there and the king behind. The knight's going to move to c6. Looks like an odd move, but that queen is now attacking the king on e8. So let's take a look at that one on the chess.com analysis board. We've got white moving e4, black responds e5. White attacks the black pawn on e5 when it develops its knight to knight f3. And a lot of responses to this. Typically, black tries to defend the pawn either by bringing the knight to c6 or the pawn to d6. But this time, black decides to do something else. Black moves knight f6. This is called Petrov's defense. And instead of defending the pawn on e5, it says, I'm going to attack your pawn on e4. And it's a totally fine defense by black, but black plays it incorrectly. White knight takes on e5, and really at this point black needs to kind of scare away the white knight, bring out the queen, play d6, do something to get that white knight out of there before taking, because you see if black does what black does in this case and takes on e4, he's kind of in trouble. White attacks on the knight by bringing the queen to e2, and black says, I gotta do something about this. I can't respond so symmetrically. If I move to e7, then he takes my knight, and I can't take back. I have to try to force his knight out of there somehow. So instead, black retreats and opens himself up to what's called a discovered attack. So white moves to c6 with his knight, which looks absurd the first time you see it, because it looks as if this white knight is trying to lose itself. But when the knight moves, it exposes this queen, which is now attacking the king. So black can't take the knight right now because it has to respond to the fact that it's in check. He can either block the check by moving the bishop to e7, or moving the queen to e7, or he could postpone the inevitable by moving the black knight to e4, but regardless, black's going to lose its queen on the next move. Now we're going to look at an endgame involving forks. So you'll see the position. We see a king and a queen looking pretty confident, and then this knight is going to attack the king and the queen at the same time by moving to d6. In doing so, not only does white get the advantage, but should get the win. So this is a pretty simple tactic. This is the fork. To start off, black appears to have the advantage. Black has a queen, which is usually valued at 9 points. The white knight and the white bishop, normally you value those pieces at 3 points, so it appears black has the material advantage 9 to 6. But with white's first move, he gets a very big advantage. White moves his white knight from e4 to d6, and in doing so, he's attacking the king. The king is in check, and the king has to move. And not only is the knight attacking the king, he's also attacking the queen. So the king has to move, has to get out of check, and after the black king moves, white takes the queen on his next move. This leaves white with a bishop and a knight, and it's not an easy endgame, but if played perfectly, this should be a one position for white. White should get the win because of that forking tactic, because in that move, white was able to attack both the king and the queen at the same time. Now we're going to look at an endgame and the tactic of skewers. So we see black and white are marching their pawns down the A file and H file respectively, trying to get to the last rank, get a queen, and it looks like black's going to win and has the advantage. Black plays A2, white plays H7, black gets a queen on A1, and oftentimes getting a queen first is decisive. But on the next move, when white promotes, white can promote to a bishop or a queen. It really doesn't matter because the only thing that bishop or queen has to accomplish is to move the king out of the way, skewering the king. When the king has to move, now that queen on A1 is vulnerable. The bishop can take the queen on A1 now. So we got another endgame scenario here. Looks like white might have the advantage because white has 2 pawns, black only has 1, but it's black's move, and black is going to get that queen first. You see that black moves to A4, white moves H5, and black gets the queen first. So you might say, well, white's got 1 more pawn, but black got the queen first. But what white can do here is use the tactic of skewering. White can promote to a queen, but in this case, white's just going to promote to a bishop, because after white gets the bishop, the white bishop attacks the king, and the king has to move out of check. And when the black king moves out of check, on the next move, that white bishop takes the black queen. Black can take back, but still, white has 1 more pawn, and that pawn's going to march on, become a queen, and win the game. Thus, even though black was 1 step ahead with that tactic of skewering, white gets the win.